Oh, Centurion. You return worryingly quickly. Sorry, General, but I only made it halfway. Apparently I've picked up some kind of an accent. Patrols are questioning anyone and everyone for information on defectors. Got caught up in some nowhere village and had to spill blood to avoid being taken prisoner. Damn, I'm sorry. No problem. If it's any consolation, all of the talk was of the traitor Constantinus, nothing about you. Not yet. The time for me to act out my innocence has long passed. And given what the Senate has told me, I wouldn't be surprised if Constantinus pleaded before the Emperor that all this was my doing. The Senate will support you, sir, surely. Perhaps, but they aren't exactly against the fact Constantinus has made their families more noble than ever before, and that his special troops really do work. Sometimes I feel that I'm the only one still thinking about the rest of the world. I'll have another attempt at my mission. Harder to get caught at sea, I figure. Might even be able to sail right to the ports at Ravenna and get your family out with no trouble. I like the thought, but you've done enough. Your men will need you anyway. Action ahead. As you wish, General. What sort of action? Call me foolish or lazy, but I have grown tired of trying to second-guess Constantinus, or second-guess the course of history we're upon. No matter what comes of our collective insolence, no matter what hostages the Empire holds against me, I have decided that I will act as the officer of Britannia I am meant to be. I may not be able to do any good as a politician, but as a commander of men, as the imperial master of foot by the grace of the saner members of the Senate, I'll focus on what I can do for the people of Britannia. My own countrymen, insane senators would argue. And no people are more deserving of peace than those of Segontium. We're going to end their war once and for all. Hello and welcome back to Fields of Mars. In the previous episode, Constantinus busied himself trying to find a way to break through the defences of the Picts, but wasn't able to do so, so a standoff continues to occur there. Tullus got an uneasy peace with the Ebdanians, and they made things very clear that they were going to break that peace, and indeed they did, with an attack on Carinian with a relatively substantial force that could have taken the town, but thanks to the sacrifices and efforts of the scout Equites in particular, the townspeople were able to hold out with large casualties. We then won a very easy battle at Sagontium, yet another defence for the townspeople there, which they're beginning to find routine and easy. Tullus finished off the Abdanians in Britannia, but there was no peace for Segontium, as in the very same turn as the last attack, the Caledonian separatists came in with a battered army to have a go at the also slightly battered garrison. So a battle is about to begin at Segontium, and before the fight we've got a familiar sight. Two ships went out to defeat the enemy's commander on the seas before their force landed. They succeeded in this, and the enemy ship was so outraged it spontaneously combusted despite the heavy rain. So of course this means the rest of the enemy army will now put an abysmal performance into the rest of the fight, which will make things really easy. And we even managed to actually catch one of the other ships before it landed, which we don't usually do, so that's a nice tiny difference for this battle. So all I need to do now is micro my units and make sure nothing goes wrong, and we're pretty much guaranteed to win. The enemy do have a couple of interesting units on their side that could potentially change things, and this unit of Berserkers is the main one I was worried about, because they could quite easily smash through my low tier infantry. Luckily, Berserkers are one of the few units in the game that can actually be outright destroyed by just hitting them with archers because of their very low armor value, and because of that they lose half their men in a few seconds under the archer fire, and that threat pretty much disappears. So from then on, all I need to do is stop the enemy breaking through, which they actually almost do, but not quite in time. The cavalry start hitting them from the rear and the enemy lose their morale, and the skirmishers here absolutely no hope as they're attacked by archers and cavalry simultaneously. The balance bar already now back to a balanced situation will soon swing in my favour once the enemy start chain routing these big blobs thanks to my rear attacks. So very soon the battle ends. Their best unit, their crossbowmen, didn't even get involved in the fight. Those crossbows could have done a lot of damage to my static defensive position, but fortunately they contented themselves to hang out on the edge of town. So that ends in a heroic victory. Very easy, actually. So the Caledonian separatists are so destroyed by that fight, they're unlikely to pose a threat at any point in the future unless we give them a long time to build back up. Now, we killed their commander, and you might remember we had a mission ages ago to kill their commander, but actually it was to assassinate the commander, not kill him in battle. So whoever wanted that guy dead seemed to care quite a lot about how he was killed, so we don't get any reward. One of our governors is defaming Constantinus and spreading foul rumours about him, and Constantinus is just going to pay him off to make him stop doing that. He's not going to be any more subtle than that. So next up, we need to decide what we'll do with Tullus in particular. We aren't really going to be put under any threat from the remaining Caledonian separatists. The worst they could do is land and raid. They're not strong enough to capture anything. They could hire mercenaries to create a miniature army and then do some damage, but I'm just going to regard that as unlikely for now and head back to Sagontium, because of what I think is more likely to happen is the Ebdanians will attack Segontium again, so I'm just going to defend against it. So Constantinus is continuing his standoff against the Picts, as I mentioned earlier, and really we're not making any headway because the Picts are determined not to do anything. Constantinus has blocked their route south, so they can't attack the Caledonians or us without going through his main army, but he can't attack their city without fighting 3 armies at the same time. What I decided to try was to get the Caledonians to attack the city. If they could send even just 1 or 2 units in a separate army to besiege the city, that would knock 2 whole armies out of the first fight. We could eliminate the Picts' first field army and then fight the other one in a city assault, and that might go okay. So heading into the next turn, those separatist forces do land in our territory, but they're now dying off due to winter attrition and have virtually nothing left. And I noticed something very interesting about the Abdanians. Their main force as it stands is too far away from their capital to defend it right now. So that means if we can attack them immediately, we can take the town without having to fight through their army first and basically just swipe it from underneath their noses. Tullus is in range to attack the town right now by sea in exactly the same fashion that the Abdanians keep doing to us at Sagontium. So I hired up a load of mercenaries and made the attack, and it looked like things were going to be really easy. The balance bar's in our favour. We do have to dodge the enemy's fleet, but I thought that's not going to be a problem. But I realised the reason the balance bar is so far in our favour is because of a little bug that I've caused myself. You can see some of the enemy's garrison units only have 4 men. Now I think that's because at some point in this campaign I must have accidentally had the minimal unit sizes mod on that I was using to get the unit sizes down for cutscenes, and they must have upgraded their town on the turn when I had it on, and of course their garrison to spawn with the minimal unit sizes coming through for whatever reason. So because of that I decided to retcon what just happened in order to make things a bit more fair. I got rid of all the mercenaries and just took the financial hit for having hired them, then got rid of them immediately, and I also got rid of the auxilia since they're not really a foreign campaigning force anyway, and came back with just the interesting newer units. The balance bar for some reason was exactly the same, so I'm sure that was some sort of glitch because they can't have counted for nothing or so little in the balance bar. I'm not really sure, but we can't disband anymore. We're going to have to make this raid and get some revenge on the Ebdanians. 1,000 at most. Must be everything they could muster. But if we can stop them here, just think what Abba will be doing to them. Over these years they have moved all their men to Segontium, and so our raid to the south will have caught them off guard. Perhaps we will see the glow of Britannia burning even before this battle is over. What a desperate thing it must have been to decide that it's better to die trying to take revenge than to defend your homes and families. But then again, what else would a Roman do? At least their madness will see them dead. I'll head for the boats now. Let them land and engage them outside the town. We will land behind them and watch as they realize how they have trapped themselves. This is it. The fall of Rome starts here. Despite being a naval assault, this battle will begin on land as 2 units of advanced deployed cavalry find a chance to attack an enemy unit of skirmishers just outside the town. They get a good charge off on them, but the enemy have lots of forces locally. These Javcav come to join the fight in melee. Both of our units are Equites Auxilia, superior to the Scout Equites we've been using before at fighting in melee, so that's okay, but the enemy do have overwhelming numbers, plus indiscriminate javelin fire from another skirmishing cavalry unit that's just killing everyone in the melee with these attacks. So I ordered my men to fall back. Unfortunately, one of the officers of one of the two units was killed as they escaped, along with many of the troops. In the end, perhaps not the most favourable engagement. We lost some of both units of cavalry to defeat almost a whole unit of enemy skirmishers. It depends what that skirmish unit would have done to work out whether that would have been a worthy trade. But anyway, at least we're keeping the enemy focus on us over here as they form up entirely to resist those cavalry, completely ignoring the fact that our main force is now landing on the beach right outside their town. So the meat of this force is the cohort auxilia. These are basically like the auxilia we've seen before, the spear unit, just replacing the spear with a sword. Otherwise, pretty much the same thing, so still not much of a step up from regular modern Roman Empire troops, but still very effective in melee combat and better than auxilia. Now I rushed forward because I wanted to capture a nice ridge between me and the enemy's army. They sent out their skirmishing cavalry to contest it, but my own skirmishers on foot were well able to defeat them. We have more men throwing than they do, we have heavier armour and shields, plus as the enemy come over the ridge here, they discover another one of my units which hits them at close range, pretty much wiping out that unit of Javcav. Very surprised they didn't even break at that stage. Finally they go. So now we're just going to form up with our infantry and try and use that little ridge to resist the enemy who are charging towards us. The town itself completely undefended, but we don't need to go in there right now. The enemy king leading the navy to our rear by the looks of things, so we want to just keep pushing forward in that case and keep this fight away from the beach so we don't get rear flanked. On the way, the enemy used their cavalry to try and stop me. Not the best move because the cohort auxilia, although no longer having the bonus against cavalry of the regular auxilia, they are extremely good in melee with high armour and high attack, so they'll still defeat the cavalry ordinarily. Now next, the infantry fight is going to begin. The enemy moved forward under fire from my skirmishers and the peeler from the cohort. I've got the skirmishers on a ridge behind the cohort auxilia so they can throw over the top of my troops hopefully and into the enemy, plus the enemy allowing me to throw the peeler at close range into their flanks by all kind of bunching up and focusing on one unit at first before they finally started to spread out and engage multiple units in melee. Even when the melee gets started though, they're going to find that our troops are better than the usual Romans they face. We have quite superior stats to both regular cohort or the comitatensis spears that these men might be used to facing in battle. Plus, with javelins raining from behind and the fact that we can easily surround the enemy because they formed their army up into such a blob there, means overall we're just going to get every single advantage in this fight. So these cohort prepare to make a flank attack, while behind the enemy army, those cavalry will now make a return from hiding. There's one of those units with only 4 men in it that we saw on the campaign map, obviously not really making an impact on the battle, and they disappeared under the cavalry charge. That charge also making it all the way to the back of the enemy's main infantry formation. So they're not going to break instantly because they still have their commander, but they're in big trouble. Their morale's going to be dropping, and when they realise what's happening at the front, that being they're being slaughtered by our far superior melee combatants, they'll soon start losing heart and try to escape, and as they try to escape, they're going to be slaughtered because they're already surrounded, both by our cavalry and now the infantry coming around from both wings. So, at this stage, that's the enemy's garrison pretty much wiped out. The enemy still has presence on the balance bar because their navy is worth quite a lot. They have some decent units out there. And you can see only just now they've started to land on the beach. Far too late to have an effect on the battle. They probably should have just landed right away and rushed to join it. So I quickly turned my army around. The enemy had some very long-range archers, but the large shields of the cohort mean it's not going to do much. And we even had some peeler left to bombard the enemy's infantry as they advanced. So we actually killed a lot of their marines before combat was joined. And as this unit comes in here, it's going to take another volley, losing most of its men, their morale basically breaking as soon as they arrive. There's really no way for them to overcome our men. They do have here some axemen. Now, axemen are the natural counter to a heavy unit like cohort because they're cheaper and have very high attacks, so we'll be able to punch through the armor of our units while being more cost effective overall. But since they only have one unit in this battle, we can completely surround them. Plus, of course, these axemen with poor armor are going to be weak against our ranged attacks from the skirmishers. So overall, no trouble whatsoever. Our cavalry went and found those archers at the back, and the enemy king actually didn't join the fight. He just ran off with a few troops on the side. That was the end of that. It was a decisive victory. Easier than I thought it was going to be honest. I expected the enemy's infantry to put up more resistance, but they seemed to make just about every mistake they could do, so that went absolutely fine. The enemy's king escaping at the end with a few men, and a few of their marines getting away as well, but the whole garrison falling. So now we have to decide what to do with the town. At first I thought I'd subjugate it, but the thing is, I don't think we have any reason to trust the Ebdanians to actually remain on our side, so we will have to make the effort of actually occupying it. We'll get more money in the long run this way. But the problem strategically is that now, realistically, we're going to have to leave Tullus and his army in Abdania for a very long time in order to fight rebellions and to try and maintain public order in the area, as well as overseeing the spread of Roman paganism if we can. That means that Britannia itself is now pretty much undefended, so if another faction was to make a move on us, that could be deadly. So a bit of a gamble by trying to occupy this place, but we're going to go ahead with it. Now, as we move on, the Abdanians seem to split. An Abdanian separatist faction appears and then immediately loses a battle to the Abdanians. Moratex, their king, runs off towards the edge of the map with his marines, but their remaining military forces in the region actually went and started a siege, trapping Tullus inside the new settlement, so he's going to have to fight his way out. That also meant he couldn't replenish after that battle. Luckily, the battle spot looks okay. The enemy's army is damaged. I think it fought the Caledonians recently, which is why it wasn't in range of the town to defend it in the previous battle, so they took losses there. Plus they took winter attrition. And a really interesting thing to note here is that we've got Julianus, Constantinus' second son, fighting on our side. I made him the governor of the Ebdanian territory as soon as I took it. So apparently he came with Tullus on this expedition in order to get himself a little bit of territory to command. And the second he takes control of it, it's under attack. So he's going to be tested in battle for the first time. Lovely country out here. I suppose you wouldn't appreciate the beauty of nature, but then again you are yet to campaign, yet to truly see it as a man of the world. I'm sure Father is just waiting for something worthy of you, don't worry. And if you have any troubles or questions, now you can ask me about it. That's what old Tullus does, and look where we are now. He's even given me command of the left flank in the army he's mustering against the locals. Yeah, it does seem strange that Father won't extend the same honor to you. Perhaps you could arrange something with those tribal folk through that wife of yours. Must be so strange to be kept out of all this. I feel for you, I really do. But I must end it here. The duties of a commander await. This battle got started really fast because the enemy deployed their whole army in a guerrilla deployment right in front of where I deployed my army in this forest. I've got all my men in a stationary testudo formation because I was expecting heavy missile attacks. The enemy have lots of jav, cav and skirmishers, so I want them to just throw their javelins into the shield wall so I absorb the fire without much damage. And that's what happens as we get started. We see those skirmishers beginning their attack. But the enemy also have onagers smashing a huge hole in the Palatinate guard for Tullus. Tullus himself just to the right there, barely avoiding being killed by that first volley. Not good at all. We definitely need to disable that onager. The enemy's berserkers beginning their attack right in front of Tullus as well. They're going to chew through that unit of cohort, so he might have to move forward into the fight. His men getting bombarded by the javelins now as well as they sail over the top of our lines. Elsewhere, the men are going to be engaging the lighter infantry from the enemy, where it's going to be a bit of an easier time for the cohort, who are going to specialise in killing units like those wood runners. We've also got our own skirmishers off on the right flank, able to throw into the enemy's Celtic band and lesser units to easily bring them down. They made a cavalry attack on our left flank, but it was very ineffective. Our infantry will deal with them. Now my cavalry are moving from the left flank. One unit absorbing a lot of javelins from the enemy skirmishers, but the other unit manages to reach the onagers without being stopped. So now we can disable that fire. I decided to charge into the general, who was just sitting back here, not really doing much in an isolated position, so we should be able to inflict a few casualties on him with our cavalry, although perhaps not able to completely defeat him. So the onagers held on longer than expected, and actually an enemy cavalry unit, these raiders, came in to engage with my cav, and this is going to be a pretty close fight as my cavalry now struggle there. The enemy sent some infantry back to attack them as well. Meanwhile, the berserkers are having an okay time against my cohort. We're killing a lot of them, but they've killed enough of us that our centre is looking very weak right now, only 1 or 2 men deep in some places. Now I tried to get my cavalry out of that fight with the onager and the enemy's cav, but that's a classic Attila mistake. Cavalry cannot disengage from fights once they start. The unit was annihilated, so I should have remembered that. So we lost the entire unit of cav pretty much right away, but the other unit's still alive at this point. Now in the centre, the enemy infantry began to break, and I ordered the cohort to start advancing, and when they throw their peeler, it just decimates the units in front of them, and now they'll come in for a favourable melee against these lighter units. The enemy berserkers stopped attacking the centre and went to attack the flanks, which was great because the unit in the centre gets a break basically, and now we see those berserkers actually routing when they encounter another one of my stronger units. Now the units from Abdania, the town, have arrived under the command of Julianus, and some of them are currently helping out. Julianus himself is going to be aiding with our cavalry. He's staying tactfully at the back as his men advance to engage with the enemy's cav, who are just about to beat my cav actually. The enemy cav proving pretty good, or perhaps the Equite Auxilia proving to be not all that powerful. They look better than they are. Far from the battle, I've got one unit of skirmishers just leading enemy infantry away from the fight, which is great for us, including their commander as well. So in the centre, the enemy's infantry is now going to be destroyed. You can see on the balance bar, we've pretty much got them now, as our units can start charging forwards and taking out all the lighter units, which will mean the rest of the units will now be doomed. Tullus himself advancing with his guards to take some revenge on the enemy troops for all the losses his unit took in that fight, and soon the enemy chain rout, but I continued the battle to chase down their general. I wanted to take him out because he was a level 2 general, so you might as well kill him, so he's replaced with a level 1 general after the fight, and the enemy's unit was easy to catch. It was quite slow and exhausted from chasing my skirmishers all over the place, and the skirmishers were in a great position to go and attack them. The enemy general himself, the very last guy to go down on the enemy side, eventually we get him, and the men let up a great cheer, very happy to have cleared the siege of Abdania, although Tullus himself, you can see there in the middle, not particularly happy about it, but still, hopefully he's at least appreciative of his men's efforts in this fight. It was only a close victory. We lost about 75% of our cavalry and half of our infantry to win that very quick fight, but clearing the siege should mean we're safe for a while. Many suggested that it was the men who demanded an attack on Abdania, but even if that were the case, the fact that General Tullus did not disagree shows he was complicit. I was left with a difficult decision. Was I to punish those who had acted outside of their authority, when what they had achieved was so important? While I could have certainly taken the chance to remove Tullus from his command, I recognized that initiative and courage are values all Romans cherish, enough to offset his lack of fealty. And so I decreed that the acts of good and evil were in balance, and that resultantly no action need be taken. With this ruling I showed clearly that achievement is the true measure of a man, and that petty matters exist only in the shadow of greatness. So that's the end of that. The Ebdanians have just lost what was the last of their army, down to the last 2 units there, and those 2 units are heavily damaged. We lost 1 whole unit of our Equites Auxilia, unfortunately, and we lost most of the garrison, although there was only about 30 or so men there in total, so not much of an actual loss. We also had a navy in that battle. If you didn't notice, it didn't do anything at all. We can get some pretty good replenishment, over 10% from captives willing to join our side, so that will certainly help out, and those 2 units are going to escape from the fight. You can see the Ebdanians have now technically become a horde faction, although I don't think they're going to be able to do much with their horde status with only 2 units, especially because we can now pursue them. We also captured their onager, which is quite nice because we can't actually build those ourselves, so we'll try and keep this one safe. Constantinus did have one, but he lost it to the Picts in that big defeat a while back. So now Tullus needs to move out and finish off that army. Important because even though it's just 2 units, they're pretty likely to just hire tons of mercenaries or something and come back with a full stack out of nowhere. It tends to be what the AI does because it has a very large amount of money, especially on the high difficulties given to it for free, and I believe it gets free upkeep on its units as well, so it can just have huge armies of mercenaries all the time, even without territory. So anyway, that's the end of that. We'll get a tiny bit more replenishment. So the Ebdanians' land forces are now wiped out. The faction is not wiped out because they still have that navy led by their king, which is just off to the south. So we'll just have to wait and see what that one does. Meanwhile, Tullus will just wait in Abdania to slightly reduce the extent to which this place is going to rebel, which is still quite a lot. The public order is declining rapidly, plus he can replenish his troops. So now the question is what Constantinus is going to do, and I thought Constantinus probably would like to try and prevent any bickering between his sons. Now that Julianus appears to have risen to an important position, he's going to have to make Constans a commander as well, although he may not wish to. So Constans is given command at Eboracum, and I'm going to recruit a couple of units of cavalry to go around with him. We don't really have enough money to give him a full army. Also noticed that public order was declining across the rest of Britannia, and that seems to be because of of immigration. The wars in the north are basically driving people across the land, and the effect of these refugees is destabilizing things down to the south. So that's unfortunate, but should come to an end if we can finish these wars. The Ebdanian fleet seems to be going after the Ebdanian separatist fleet, so they're more interested in taking revenge on them than regaining a foothold. I tried to promote Julianus to a military count, the same rank as Constans, but someone's trying to stop him, but Constantinus is just going to decree that he must be made a count, so that will go through. Also, our two governors in Britannia Superior and Inferior were promoted to a military count to give some slight buffs. Now, Tullus, our high-ranking officer, is now eligible for promotion to Master of Horse, the next rank up from Master of Foot. The only problem with that is that the bonuses you get from it are worse, plus Tullus has been a little bit of a naughty boy in that he shouldn't really have been campaigning with such a small army without permission, and it's just sort of by the luck and the actions of the Caledonians that he actually got away with all that. So as punishment, he's going to be denied a promotion and will remain as Imperial Master of Foot for now. Need to spend all my money in Abdania, converting the religion building over to Roman paganism from Celtic paganism, so can't really do anything much else this turn. What I can do is some military movements. Constans moves up to sit near Eildon. I wanted to actually come and levy some troops from the Caledonians so he'd have a bit more of a force, but since I spent all my money, we can't do that. So perhaps next turn we'll give him some Celtic units to follow him. But first, I realised there's a potential opportunity up here near Tullus, because the army that was inside the city has now stepped outside just to the right in order to recruit for some reason. It doesn't need to do that, but what it means is that their first army will only be reinforced by the town garrison and not the whole second stack if I attack it now. That first army, pretty decent, got lots of axemen, but it's not all that large, and it has a lot of skirmishing units which, if treated correctly, won't be very effective. We might be able to absorb all their javelins, etc. into our shields. So because of this, plus the fact Constantinus is under pressure to finish his campaign, especially since Tullus is apparently upstaging him by going and defeating his enemy with far fewer troops, it's time for battle. We're attacking this dual army, and the important thing to note is that the first army is fortified. That means we can deploy wherever we want on the battlefield, and most notably we can deploy in front of the enemy's reinforcement direction and split the two armies apart and fight them one at a time. The Ebdanian king's promise of an end to Roman aggression had returned entirely the opposite result. Perhaps that was the reason why many were tolerant of the sudden occupation, watching patiently as the Abdanian army took and lost its last chance. With most of the fighting-age population dead, missing or defected, they had little choice but to submit their kingdom to the band of a few hundred men that had stormed ashore one cold winter's day. The Britons weren't all that happy about it either. Most of their military was now too far away to be of any use, and the fleeing people of the Picts and Ebdanians alike were appearing in the south to put even more stress on a society struggling with failing crops and 6-month winters. Thanks so much for watching. We've got a few battles against the Picts ahead of us in the next episode of Fields of Mars.